I first met Sam Shank down by the railroad tracks. Hey, folks, it's Kent Lindstrom. I am a partner at the venture capital firm 8-Bit Capital. We do pre-seed investing into software companies, and I have this podcast. And my guest today is Sam Shank. I first met Sam. There's a venture firm that used to be called SoftTech. It's now called Uncork. There's a guy named Jeff Clavier who's still called Jeff Clavier. But a long time ago, SoftTech had an office down by the railroad tracks in Palo Alto, and I was there to meet Jeff Clavier for whatever reason, and I ran into a guy coming out of his office named Sam Shank, and we had time to talk for a couple minutes, and I thought, well, this guy seems like somebody you want to keep an eye on, somebody who might be going somewhere, and sure enough, Sam Shank built HotelTonight. HotelTonight was acquired by Airbnb for $500 million. And I think the stock did pretty well from there as well. HotelTonight is not an obvious idea if you know what they do. They let you book hotels. They only do one thing, let you book a hotel tonight, same day. And this was not the first thing that Sam Shank did. It's not the second company he did. It's not the third company he did. This is a good story about a certain kind of founder, great founder in Silicon Valley, who gets to the huge outcome through a path. And that path involves doing other things. And that path involves doing something fairly similar. He worked at a company beforehand that had a lot of similarities, a lot of the travel DNA and hotel DNA that would end up being in HotelTonight. Anyway, it is a great story. And here's a couple other teases for you. Sam Shank is doing something new, and it's not in the travel business, and it's pretty cool. Sam Shank, by the way, I just like saying the name. You know my joke by now of how everybody in Silicon Valley went to school at Harvard, Stanford, or Princeton. Well, Sam went to school at Northwestern, MBA school. Not as rare as you'd think in Silicon Valley. And I'll leave you with one more thing. The successful founder you're going to talk to today, the guy who built HotelTonight and sold it for $500 million, his career begins in a place you wouldn't really expect, with him working on the movie Scream from Wes Craven. Yeah. Welcome back. It's the Something Venture podcast. My guest today, Sam Shank. All right, welcome back. This is the Something Venture podcast. I am Kent Lindstrom. I am your host. My guest today is Sam Shank. How are you doing?
I am good. Good to see you, Kent.
I know. Thanks so much for doing this. Sam comes to Silicon Valley. Well, first of all, actually by way of Kellogg, which is the business school for Northwestern. I went to Kellogg too a long time ago. Kind of rare in Silicon Valley, like to not have gone to Harvard, Stanford, or Princeton.
Well, it's becoming potentially more rare to even go to a business school. But yeah, Kellogg. I think I was thinking about why Kellogg doesn't have as much representation in the Bay Area, and I think it's because it's really nice in the Midwest. It's known as a marketing school. There's really great marketing jobs there. When Sarah and I were there, it was over 20 years ago now. We almost stayed there because we love the people, the quality of life, and I think it just attracts a lot of people to stay there versus come out to the Bay Area.
It's funny. I went a long time ago. One of the things, at least when I went, Northwestern did a couple things. It's a marketing school. So at the end of every class, you would rate the professor. Mm-hmm. And if the professor didn't get good ratings, they'd be gone. Unlike a school where you could just be a terrible professor, but, do a lot of research. And so as a result, every professor, like my accounting professor, was this woman who was like one of the most compelling people I've ever seen. And then everything is a group project, so it kind of tends to consulting. But I went a long time ago. I don't know if it made much difference. But and there's more than you like. I actually made a list at some point. There's actually more than you think. Like Gil Pancino was a Kellogg. I mean, there's a few of them floating around. Anyway,
and it was great for me, by the way. It was exactly what I needed to launch my entrepreneurial journey. And so I've been working at tech companies before that. I went to business school and met Chuck Templeton is another, the founder of Open Table,
Oh, wow.
and got to know him really well, and he really helped me get my first business started. So, so if it wasn't for him, that's it wasn't for Kellogg, wouldn't be talking with you here.
Well, and it is funny too, where so Kellogg would have like some founder come in, some entrepreneur, they had an entrepreneurship class, and it would be some guy who just gotten really rich, had built a company and sold it in the entrepreneurship class, and was like, "Oh, what's the key? How'd you do it?" And it's like, "Well, I didn't go to business school, and I guess learn accounting and sales, right?" Like, it was like, I don't know, just freaking go do it. That's what I did. Um, but you come to Silicon Valley by actually somehow, well, I should say, you founded Hotel Tonight. That's a thing, and have now started another company, which seems like a bad idea, starting a company, but we'll hear how that's going. But you came by way of Hollywood, is this right? Like, you started out, you thought you came west, you got that part right, but how'd you end up in Hollywood versus Silicon Valley?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this was in the '90s when I was thinking about what I wanted to do, and really loved filmmaking, and wanted to give it a shot and see if like I could be a movie director. And I think that the common thread of all this is I like to build stuff, I like to create stuff, I like to bring products to market, I like to entertain people, and you build something for a unique audience. And so the initial thought was that I was going to do that in the movie business, and networked my way into meeting Wes Craven, and then he gave me a job on his next movie, which was called Scary Movie, which then was changed to Scream. And I was a production assistant. On good days, I'd read a bunch of scripts and figure out what Wes was going to do next, and give him ideas on that. And on most days, I would get laundry and mailboxes, and I'm a really, really good box mailer and packer at
That's
this
good.
point. So,
Yeah,
but ultimately, Hollywood wasn't what I thought in terms of it being a sort of fertile ground for an entrepreneurial 21-year-old.
yeah.
And I thought people were going to be running around making movies, and it was people were wanting to work for 20 years and maybe get their shot. And I just did the math, and I looked at what I wanted to do in my life, and I just didn't see it playing out. So then I followed my other passion, which was technology,
Yeah.
and moved up to the Bay Area and this was like the late '96. So the dot-com
Mm.
boom was just starting. So I think I made the right call to go after an industry that was growing, not shrinking, and it played a lot more to my strengths.
Pretty good first one out though, doing Scream.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Like,
it's like a nice fun fact, and I've
yeah.
got a credit in the movie and
Isn't
like on IMDb,
isn't that
but
one
yeah,
of the great, like, is this am I getting this right? Or sometimes I just make stuff up, but it's a podcast, so who cares? That Drew Barrymore was in that for like day or a week or something worth of work, and got some huge financial outcome for it, as I understand.
yeah, yeah, no, she was, a headliner, and then she was killed off in the first 10 minutes, did a week of work. That was like a big twist to have. This is like all before Game of Thrones to have like a lead
Right, right,
killed,
right.
right? And it was so, shocking. And, yeah, I don't know what her exact deal was, but everybody on that movie, did really well. I mean, I didn't, but
Yeah,
everybody that was in the movie
yeah.
did very, very well.
I've heard it's one of those great kind of Hollywoods. The guy who is in, I forget his name, Married with Children. It was this TV show a long time ago, and
Bundy.
the Bundy guy did some deal where like Fox gave him like a percentage of the company. He was like kind of more famous than they were when Fox was nothing as a network. So I don't know if they gave him this some big part of the syndication or whatever it was, but apparently it was just one of the like Madden-esque deals of all time. You're like, really, that guy? Anything can
Yeah.
happen in Hollywood.
Oh,
So you, so
all
you,
those deals have kind of dried up because a couple people had some of these home runs. So
yeah, well, exactly.
yeah,
So you come to, but before Hotel Tonight, as they say, you had a couple of other companies. How do you kind of come to Silicon Valley and start this crazy thing that we do, which is thinking you can start a company? Like, what were because it feels like your progression made some sense as I'm kind of previewing this, but up to Hotel Tonight, you've done a couple things that maybe prepared you for that. What was your path once you escaped Hollywood from your brief
well,
Hollywood career,
I worked at a lot of interesting internet companies in the dot-com boom. A company called CNET, which is tech news, and Excite, which was the number 2 search engine back then, right after Yahoo. And But pretty soon there, I was like, wait a second. What I really want to do is start my own company, and that's going to be the equivalent of directing a movie. Pull together a team, figure out the strategy, point everybody in the right direction, and then release something that hopefully works. So I then it was like then I was focused on what do I need to get to that place, and so that was doing a lot of different jobs in those companies, business development and honing my sales skills, a lot of product work, and so becoming pretty well rounded. And then the floor fell out with the dot-com boom, so nobody was doing anything, and so I went to and invested in myself for 2 years with Kellogg, and I'm glad I did, and used that as like this launching pad to do the first business, which was Travel Post. And yeah, looking back on it, it all sort of makes sense. Like I did these two travel startups, and then I
Yeah.
did, first two swings didn't work, and the third one did. I mean, it would have been a lot nicer if the first one had actually worked, because it
Yes.
was a
Right.
grind, and it was just as much work as Hotel Tonight, but with far less of an outcome.
Well, it's funny coming out of the dot-com crash. I try to remind people what it was like. The vibe at the time was it was like nuclear winter in Silicon Valley, and it was like it was over, right? Like everything that's ever been invented on the internet. And it just reminds me when people say it. Not it's happened like 3 times since, but everything that's ever been invented on the internet's been invented. It's over. And venture capital firms were scrubbing, the way they all crypto disappeared from all the websites in the last couple of years, like internet disappeared from all the websites, and and then it wasn't over.
Yeah.
It turns out.
It all came back. I remember some smart friends of mine that were in finance were like, "Hey, Sam, I'm really sorry, but the internet's over." and
Yeah.
and if you look back on it, everything was tracking actually to some of the earliest projections, but it sort of skipped 1 year.
Right.
So the dot com winter felt like a long time, but it was only just sort of 1 year. But everything else came true.
Yeah.
But it was hard because I was young and I had a pretty good track record of getting promoted and more responsibility and delivering results at these companies. And then it was all of a sudden like a joke of a punchline for a pets.com joke or something like that.
Right.
My entire career, like I was embarrassed about,
Yeah.
and felt like I needed to start over. But then, continue to stay interested in technology. And it was actually, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but it was actually Friendster
Yeah.
that got me excited about consumer internet
Oh,
again.
yeah. Yeah.
And I was interning at a nanotechnology company or something in the summer of Kellogg, and I saw Friendster. I was like, "Wow, this
Yeah.
is exciting. This is new. Clearly, there's some like life in consumer internet." And then that led to me thinking about, what category would I like to build in, and settled on
Yeah.
travel,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that
then
was
built that
my
business.
my now partner, Jonathan Abrams, during this time. He's like, "Well, I can't really do anything, and nobody's gonna hire anybody." He's an engineer and an inventor, obviously, and just sitting there in his bedroom, with the Galaga machine, kind of invented that, kind of what became a whole industry. Is your first company a big success or,
No,
how
not much of a success. I made a little bit of money for investors, but we only raised $1 million or so, and it ended up being a hotel review business that was very SEO driven, so very much sort of in the right down the middle of the road for that type of that time. But we didn't really build anything that was significantly different than TripAdvisor, and then TripAdvisor was just so much better because of the network effect that they had with reviews, and their mastery of SEO. And so it was we got to break even or something like that off of a few employees, and we're lucky to sell it to a company called Sidestep, which was a travel comparison shopping engine.
Yeah. And so you stick with the travel theme for your next company, is that right?
Reluctantly, like I saw with Travel Post how hard it was to do travel, and then I had an idea for a deals site that I wanted to pursue, and it was, I guess, again, easy to look back on this. It was sort of a small idea. It was an iterative idea on what was out there, but the idea was then to start in travel and then branch out into all different types of deals. We launched the business like in April, May of 2008. So, by the end of the year, we were, dealing with another nuclear winter type of situation. So we ended up just battening down the hatches and staying focused on travel.
The king of timing. So what are you learning here? There's a couple, like you started with SEO, which is interesting that you talk first about distribution versus your product or, one distribution method. And then also the concept of kind of a small idea. Like we see it all the time in venture capital where somebody's doing something. We're like, It's good if you nail it." Like, is it big? Like, I don't know, like the classic one is, "Oh, let's, put together travel itineraries so we can share them with people and strangers and stuff." And, like, that idea comes around, like, every 2 years, and it's just like, yeah, if you
No,
did
I
it
see that I see
up
that
front.
idea, like, every 2 months, and I
Okay, right.
always have to, like, ask the founder, like, "Hey, this has been tried 100 times, like, are you sure you wanna do this?"
Yeah,
And sometimes that, motivates them to try something else, but often, they need to live it and pursue it themselves, which is all fine.
yeah, yeah,
I guess, yeah, the 2 key lessons I learned on the first businesses, small idea, like, incremental idea, trying to build something slightly better than what's out there already. That's very hard.
yeah,
Just it's hard to get mind share with customers because you're not very remarkable, right? They're like, "Oh, well, um, TripAdvisor, like, already works for me, so why would I need to change?" And we didn't have like, we had these really cool demographic filters, so you could say, "I wanna hear from travelers like me." Like, I don't care what, everybody says. It's only people that are, in my, like, type of, that are doing trips like I take, like family trips, new parents, etcetera. I wanna hear what they think. So it was a good idea, but it wasn't enough to get people to switch,
yeah,
ultimately. And then the other key thing I learned was about distribution and how hard it is if you build something even, like moderately better, it's so hard to get the word out there for it.
mhm,
Even if it's really great, it's still hard to get the word out on it.
yeah,
And so you travel post, one of the key things I read, when building that business was a big SEO playbook. And I was like, okay, well, and we built the whole site off of, SEO optimized, and that worked, and we got lots of traffic. It didn't, necessarily like create a business, but it was lots of traffic. And then with Dealbase, we started with SEO, then Panda hit, and we got penalized, and which is
yeah,
the risk of that one. And then of SEO. And so we ended up doing sort of search engine arbitrage, which was we'd buy traffic from, one site and sell it to another site, for a couple pennies more and do that, a million times a month. It was a yucky business. But they did give distribution. So
It's so funny that there's a couple lessons there. One, whenever I see somebody in stealth mode, like you were so far away from anybody even caring about you. Like you think, Bill Gates wakes up in the morning or whatever and goes, "Oh, I, I, got- I gotta keep an eye on this guy." And I remember I worked with, I don't know if you've met Stan Chudnovsky before, he ran WhatsApp at Facebook, and he would say, speaking out of school here, he would just say, like, when you build a new product, like, it can't just be better than the other one. It's gotta be, like, 10 times better than the other thing and, like, 1/10 the cost. Like, it's gotta be a dating site that you go on and in, like, 5 minutes meet your future spouse. And these kinda incremental, slightly better than Craigslist, slightly better than, whatever, it just doesn't work, basically.
yep.
Basically.
You gotta be, and then, the other thing there, and, I think this was, maybe Hunter at Homebrew said it, or his partner, was that, you not only have to be better, but you have to be different, right? So, having the ability to really stand out in the market because you're just remarkably different, that, like, really helps to, give people, like, a reason to tell others about it, right? And
Yeah.
it can really foster the word of mouth. But if you're like, even if you're faster, better, cheaper, right? There's another dimension which is, different, that is often overlooked.
Yeah. So you come to Hotel Tonight, and this is for people who don't know, I think everybody knows, but I'm just curious how this idea happened because this does not seem at all obvious to me. But it was same day mobile based, same day booking of hotels. Like how the hell is that a thing? I mean, obviously it is, but that doesn't seem really obvious to me.
Yeah, that specific idea came by being in the travel industry for as long as I had, well, whatever, it was 4 years at that point, but I sort of saw where the trends were headed. So, one, mobile bookings. Mobile bookings they were only 3% of, all bookings, but they were growing like, a huge amount month over month even, right? And now they're something like 70%. And maybe when we started it was like even 1%. And some of the data that people were talking about is that those mobile bookings were predominantly same day, which makes sense because you don't have your computer when you need to book a hotel. And so that sort of planted one seed. And then the other is just in general, the booking window like was compressing. I was reading headlines every, quarter about how the booking window compressed, meaning that people would book closer into their trip, which makes
Mhm.
sense because you don't want to like have to, have your money tied up for longer. Right. And so more and more people were booking close. And I said, well, why don't we just jump to the natural conclusion here
Wow.
and do same day bookings and mobile, which is the very best way to do those.
Right.
And then I was thinking about, how this could manifest and then how we would get the word out on it. And it was going to the app store and looking at all of the horrible apps in the travel category. That the app store at that time had, it was very category and rankings based. So you'd go in, you'd like say, I want a travel app, and then you'd see the top 10 apps and whatever. And so within that, those top 10 apps were horrible. They had, Travelocity had like a 1.5 star review. Hotels.com had a 2-star review. And I said, well, if you build something from the ground up for mobile, maybe we could build a 5-star app here.
Yeah.
And so it was that combination of, a business opportunity, but also like a distribution opportunity.
Yeah. Now, I would guess the other side of the equation is that on the day of a hotel with an empty room, it's just kind of worthless at that point, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about to
Yeah.
become worthless.
It's perishable inventory. That's the other side of it, and it was another big breakthrough. And like I thought about the idea for the better part of 6 or 7 months before I
Yeah.
said, "Oh my gosh, this is actually like a great like idea for a company. This is could change the way that people travel in general." So, but like the discovery process, I was ruminating on it a lot, and one of the big breakthroughs was I was in New York and Gramercy Park Hotel. It was Fashion Week. It was very busy in New York. Everything like was basically like, double the price or whatever. And I went to the front desk and I said, "Hey, just by the way, do you have any rooms available?" And he's like, "Yeah, we always have like 5 or 6 we can't sell no matter what." And I said, "Oh, well,
Interesting.
that's good to know. Maybe we could do something together in the future." And we ended up, having a great relationship with them, which was fun.
Now, did the App Store thing, little inside baseball, but did you get up in the rankings? Did you like buy ads to put yourself up? Did you go meet somebody who works at the App Store and get featured? Like, how did that actually go initially?
Yeah, yeah. All of the above. And one thing we did was just obsess on our rating. So, we made sure every customer in the early days had a great experience, even if we had to refund their entire hotel stay. And it was like, I don't know, a couple months in, we got our first 1-star rating. It was like devastating for us.
Yeah,
So that helped a lot. And then, yeah, we did, there were various tactics at that point that then, it was a moment of time where you could, get yourself up in the rankings, which we did. I did a lot of press during those times, and that actually
yeah,
boosted the rankings more than anything. And then, yeah, we had relationships within the App Store through some of our investors, and ended up getting featured like many times. Though that didn't happen until later. We kind of had to prove ourselves.
yeah,
One, we had to prove ourselves, and two, we had to be in more cities. I don't know, it was three of us. So, there's, my co-founder who was doing all of the hotel sales. And so we only had the ability to do 3 cities when we launched. And they're like, well, we can't promote this and, it's only in 3 cities. So you need to like get a bunch more signed up. So
yeah.
that's what we did.
I just think the App Store thing was because I had different apps at that time. And it was just this whole like this mysterious thing. Like, oh, here's how they do it. No, it's this guy, or no, it's actually that guy. And it was just like it was just kind of funny to kind of figure out how that all like like how that all worked. Like there's just some guy who could like make or break you somewhere in Apple. And it's like I don't know, I just thought that was always kind of entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. They were great partners though. And we, We built the app, with Apple in mind, and in terms of it being a high quality app, being designed first, being having great inventory, having great customer support. We made it so that it was easy for them to support us.
Yeah.
So and that did work.
Yeah, Instagram did that early on. They were featured on the homepage forever. My understanding is that part of it was they agreed not to go to Android for a long time. And so the Apple guys were, as long as you don't go to Android, we'll, push you to the top. And then of course, taking photos, didn't really hurt the iPhone at all. Um, so when does this start working? Like obviously this company becomes a big success later, but were you guys kind of looking at each other one day and say, okay, this thing's taking off, or the servers are melting, or whatever's happening is happening.
Yeah, it took a little while, and we had gotten really low on cash, and so I was pretty worried. But we our first month we wanted to do like 100 bookings. This was in January, and that's like 3 a day. It felt like that was reasonable, and we ended up doing like 30 of them, and most of those were ourselves, like testing things out. So
Yeah.
it definitely started slower than we expected, but it wasn't until it was like close to Memorial Day that we had a really big weekend, which was, I don't know, like 25 bookings in one day. And my co-founder Jared texted me. He said, "There's a new online travel agency in town. There's a new OTA in town," and that was really the turning point where I was like, "Okay, this has caught fire and this is working." Um, we got very good in terms of press and the demand side of things in terms of getting people to get the app. And so we didn't have a problem there, and people really liked it almost from day one. We had a great interview on TechCrunch, a video interview with Sarah Lacey and Paul Carr, and we got just a lot of great momentum. People were talking about us, but nobody was actually using it
Right.
to book
Right.
hotels, which was a problem.
Yeah.
So, in looking back on it, what happens is like you just don't need a hotel every day. It's not, you have to be in the right place at the right time. So it took people a little while to get there. And then once they were, they started using it.
Yeah.
But there was a separation between app discovery and app utilization.
So at some point, obviously, it starts booming because you get acquired, right? How did that happen? Like, you're on your way to an IPO or whatever the the dream is. Like, how'd you end up exiting this thing?
Yeah, I'd known Brian for a long time and a lot of mutual respect, and we have a lot of similarities as companies in terms of being
This is the
entry into.
Airbnb founder, right?
Yes, Brian Chesky. Yep, founder and CEO, and there was a lot of similarities. San Francisco cultures were very similar. Appreciation of great design, and then it was very complementary. Booking on Airbnb at the last minute. Hosts don't like it. They don't like short stays, and the cleaning fees can often be as much as the room, which it's just
Right.
the structural issues that happen with a homestay. And a short-term rental versus a hotel, like, has a cleaning staff that, they can spread the cost out over a lot
Right.
of different rooms. And so we just felt that it was a natural combination. And they were, the time was really good for them as they were thinking about adding hotels to locations that were, that had, supply issues and compression, or that had regulation, places like New York and Barcelona, LA, et cetera.
Right.
And so I looked at the deal, and I said, together we can be stronger with them. And it was also a chance for us and the team to build something really big within Airbnb, to build a whole category, and build this category and take on the incumbents in a way that we hadn't been able to before, just because of our scale.
And is there a moment? It's a pretty big financial acquisition. It seems to me. Is there a moment where you kind of go, "Huh, I'm not that guy anymore who's running out of cash. I'm actually kind of a pretty wealthy person now. Like, this is kind of amazing, and I have to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. I could do nothing, or I mean, how does that happen? Like, you've been working forever to get there, and you kind of got there.
Yeah, I went and immediately started working at Airbnb, and worked all the way through COVID, and so didn't have, much time to think about that until,
Right.
a few years ago, and I don't know, I came to the conclusion that I really like to build stuff, I like to
Yeah.
work with great people, that I like the creative process of bringing something to market,
Yeah.
and so that's what I've done in a variety of capacities as a board member and as an advisor, and then as a founder of, the Stand insurance business.
Yeah. And so, well, and so end scene, congratulations. That was a great deal on great building that company. And now you go up and do it again.
Yeah.
Which is great. Stand insurance. How do you so you kind of travel, and then okay, now you're in a different market. How'd you come to the insurance idea, and how'd this one get started?
Yeah, and it was very important for me for building something to do it in a different industry. I have kept on saying to myself, I'm not going to do another travel company, and they keep pulling me in. And I love travel, and I certainly have focused my advising and board work within that industry. But for building something, wanted the intellectual challenge of doing a different industry, and had been talking with my friend Dan Preston, who was the CEO of Metromile, about a lot of different ideas, and then also, a mutual friend of ours, Bill Clerico, who runs Convective Capital, came to us and was talking about this huge opportunity in wildfire insurance. And we talked through potential solutions and potential approaches, and it just felt right. It also, hit on something that was important for me, which was to do something that had a meaningful and like directly positive impact with the world.
Right.
In a way that Hotel Tonight didn't. And so, we can talk more about this business, but like the net is if we do it right, we're going to have fewer people lose their homes, and literally we're going to save lives. And so to have a business that had that potential was very important for me and energizing for me.
Yeah. So at the top level, people who don't live in California, people around the world, the issues that we have wildfires caused by whatever you think they're caused by climate change. So there's wildfires, and then homes get burned down, and it becomes difficult to insure a really expensive home. Is that basically where you said, okay, there's a problem with the market here, and I can come in and do something?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's tremendous demand for wildfire insurance. There's not a lot of supply. A lot of the insurers are pulled out of the market, and especially with homes that have more than $3 million of insured value. So the reason for that is that there is a state plan. Ken, congratulations, you're part owner of an insurance company.
I understand that. I understand.
and and that caps out at $3 million. And so for people above that, they are, their best option is to self-insure in many cases, which isn't a good thing for them. Doesn't help you sleep well at night, and isn't a good thing ultimately for the world if people don't have what is often their number one asset with insurance. And so yeah, we have a really novel way of looking at this, but the key takeaway is that we want to be resiliency first on this and work with the homeowner in partnership to come up with strategies and changes to their property, minor changes that can make their home more resilient if a wildfire does happen there. And through
Right.
doing that, we can actually reduce the chance of the home burning down by 90%. So, yeah, we're in the insurance business. We certainly don't want homes to burn down, but the homeowner doesn't want the home to burn down either. And that's what we can help prevent.
Yeah, I mean, isn't the problem with wildfire or flood insurance, as I, understand it from my completely amateur perspective, but that, normally insurance, you insure your house, and a bunch of people put in money, and if one of the houses burns down, well, and they, get, rebuild their house. But with a fire, if it burns down all the houses at once, then that's a problem for the insurance company, and that's why these are difficult to insure. How, like, do you solve that? Like, how do you solve that issue?
Well, that's often solved by not insuring too many homes that are in the same called fire shed area, and so that would be if there was a fire in a neighborhood, we might only have one or two homes exposed. So
Right.
there is still that spreading around of the risk. But yeah, there's sort of two ways that your home is going to get into trouble during a wildfire. One is understanding the chance of is fire going to get to your home at all. And that's what most insurance companies have been really basing their risk on, and their premiums and their underwriting on. But the second is if fire gets to your home, there's a chance that it doesn't burn down.
Right.
And that's where we come in, and we can say, because we can't do much about, where your home is located, but
Right.
we can do something about, hey, is this home going to burn down or not? We actually did some really interesting analysis. We have a really great science team, and they have built a system that creates a 3D model of the house, simulates what happens using computational fluid dynamics if a ember storm hits the house, and then can say, will this home burn down? What's the percent chance of that? What can be done to reduce the chance of it burning down? It might be cutting some limbs. It might be changing out a window, and but it's tailored for that particular house.
Yeah.
Is the set of recommendations. We ran this for 2 homes in the Palisades that were next to each other. One burned down, the other didn't. And our model said that the home that burned down would burn down, the other one would remain standing. And why was that? It was because of the orientation of the driveway, and the driveway was in a place where the embers just hit against the driveway, and they didn't burn any vegetation. And
Right.
so we still probably wouldn't have insured that home, just given how risky that area was.
Yeah.
But the technical approach that we have could be used in tons of places to help bring insurance to homeowners that can't find insurance at all, or it's going to bring down the price dramatically for them that do have insurance.
It's funny you say this because I hear people say this all the time. They have a home in Napa or something, and they can't get insurance, and they're like, "But if they could come and look at what I've done in my house, I've got this thing and the sprinkler. If you look at the road and where the fire, there's no way." And they're just frustrated that like the system just doesn't care. It's like, yeah, well, you're in the zip code and screw you.
Yeah.
So it does seem like that's a thing.
Yeah. And we're like helping educate the market about that. It's not just, the insurance companies, it's also downstream with the reinsurance companies, and we have great reinsurance partners, but having them understand that it's much more than just this point on the earth. It is, I mean, if you had a home made only out of concrete and steel, it wouldn't burn down, right?
Right.
So, very few homes are like that, but either way, that would be a really good risk.
Yeah.
And likewise, if it's, got wooden shingles on the roof, like, no, that's not going to be a good risk no matter what. Right.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so there's everything in between, and helping put a scientific framework around everything in between. And so that we can go to our reinsurance partners and say, hey, here's where we're drawing the line and why.
Yeah.
And then helping homeowners get above that line
Yeah.
through modest changes that they make to their property. That's the approach we're taking. We're
Yeah.
in year 1 of it. We're writing a lot of policies,
Yeah.
and the response from the reinsurance partners has been fantastic. That's the hard side of this marketplace is
Right.
getting more reinsurance capacity, and they've been very, very positive and supportive.
So what stage are you at, the kind of scaling stage or the figuring it out stage, or how's it going?
Yeah, it's great. We've raised a bunch of money, and we're off to the races, really scaling this. At the same time, still developing out the technology and making that better, and more precise. And that's something we're going to be doing for a long time, into the
Mhm.
future with this business, because there's a lot more work that can be done there.
That's really cool. And I'll what a great journey. I'm gonna wrap up on a couple things I'm curious to get your thoughts on. As you've seen Silicon Valley from that crash until today, how do you think it's changed? Like, is it the kind of investing environment and the starting a company environment? Like, I kind of get the sense that the first time around when you were, when Jonathan started Friendster, you started those early companies. I don't know, a little more sincerity to people starting the companies, or they're a little crazier. Like they weren't trying to get rich. They were trying to just the technology was so cool. Like, is the technology still cool?
Yeah, I mean, and just when you think that it's not cool, then something like AI comes around and it gets cool again, and people are building because they're changing the world, and that's the great part and the unique part about this area of the world is that it attracts dreamers like that. And so I continue to see that. I actually think that it's certainly versus the dot-com era, it feels a lot more serious, and people are working harder, right? And they are making more of an impact, and they want to make more of an impact versus like, hey, this is a fun.com party. Let's go to San Francisco.
Yeah.
I don't feel there's people moving here, but that's because they want to work and they want to get great jobs, not because they want to make an impact, not because they just want to jump on the bandwagon,
Yeah.
which is healthy.
Well, it's Mark Andreessen does point out. So if you don't know what it is, pets.com was kind of a joke. It would deliver pet food to you. It kind of is an internet company, delivered pet food. And, Mark Andreessen points out that it turned out to be, and I think the company raised like $130 million or something. And he points out, like, okay, timing was wrong, but today it's like a $70 billion market or something like that. And Chewy is a hugely successful company. So the idea that everyone said was stupid and became like a seminal joke actually wasn't at all stupid. Like,
Yeah.
it is a great category.
Yeah, yeah. It took a little while for the trend lines to converge, but I think our Chewy package is showing up today or tomorrow. So
Exactly.
I'm a believer.
And what do you make so AI to the travel industry? Anything in particular that you note that happens there? Or is it the technology works pretty well?
No, no, no. I think that it's gonna. I mean, AI is gonna change every workflow and make everything more efficient. We could go on and on that, but I think in travel in particular, what's going to be interesting to watch is how distribution of travel changes. Right now, a lot of it starts on Google and ends on an online travel agency like Booking.com or Expedia, and that's because people just don't know, where to start other than searching for Barcelona hotels or
Yeah,
a particular hotel in Barcelona, and then they end up on the booking site. Um, in a world where that query is through a great travel agent assistant that knows me, knows my preferences, knows what I need for my family, knows what type of trip I'm going on, knows where I've stayed before, and I say, "Hey, give me some ideas for that Barcelona thing I've got coming up." Um, and it not only is finding great hotels for me, but it's also then finding the best prices for me, without any financial incentive for doing so because I'm paying my agent, to
yeah,
do all this work for me. And
yeah,
if it got a kickback, I'd switch agents. So in that world, it is a very changed landscape in terms of distribution. I think it's a great thing for the individual property owners for a small hotel because they'll get a lot more direct business versus having to go through Booking.com.
And on the insurance side, I assume that these models that you're running and that figure out which house will or won't burn down probably have some AI component in them.
There's lots of AI. Yeah, exactly. And we're continuing to use that to make the models better, faster, and cheaper.
And what do you see risks like in the AI? There's kind of an emergent. You're starting to see politicians like get worried about AI, try to regulate it. The obvious one in San Francisco is Waymos have sort of emerged, taken over, and become hugely popular. And like, there's some people are trying to, oh no, we got to put that back in the bag, or we shouldn't allow it, or it's going to, eliminate jobs. Do you think this is just another one like the mobile, the internet, that, or is there a battle brewing here that means something?
Well, I'm not a big fan of regulating technology that is making our lives better and safer in the form of Waymos and self driving, generally. But I do think that we can't overlook the job impact that has. That doesn't mean we shouldn't save lives by encouraging more self driving, but it does mean that we need more job training. We need more people in trade schools, and that's a separate policy discussion. But I don't like blocking progress in order to preserve jobs that could be shifted to something far more productive and fulfilling for the person doing the job.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird. I mean, just in terms of AI and kind of a visible thing, the self-driving cars have kind of been in San Francisco for a long time, and they've been testing, and you're like, okay, that's 10 years away. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't 10 years away. Like, all of a sudden, it's here. People massively prefer it. Women prefer it so much so that in markets where Waymo exists, Lyft and Uber now lets you select your driver, like, whether you want a man or woman as driver. People put their kids in Waymos to go to school. So you show up at a school drop off and there's like 10 Waymos there. I mean, it's just one of those things where one day it wasn't in terms of AI, and then just the next day it was.
Yeah, I've been thinking about, self-driving cars and writing about it, for many, many years, and what's very hard is to tell exactly with a tipping point of when it's gonna happen. I kept on thinking that my kids who are now 17 and 20 wouldn't need to drive. Turns out that, and that was when they were born.
Yeah.
Turns out that I was, just a few years off, but it's very, very hard to nail the exact date on these things. But their kids certainly won't need to learn how to drive, and it'll be rare that they would even learn how to drive any more so than they would learn how to ride a horse.
Yeah, well, and you gotta wonder too if, like, if it's 93% safer or whatever the numbers are, like, at some point, the insurance gotta change too, right? Like, if people aren't getting injured, hurt, or damaged, like, you'd think the insurance would just get cheaper at some point.
Yeah, and it's gonna be the 93% is only because there's really bad human drivers that get in the way. So,
Yeah.
when you get into full autonomy, like, the risks go down significantly. Yeah, and,
Y
so it's not a good time to be in, in the insurance business for cars,
yeah,
because pretty soon it's gonna be, adverse selection.
yeah. Well, yeah, when there were some politicians in San Francisco that were trying to stop self-driving cars, and they sent a bunch of crash videos to the state regulator. Well, it turned out all the crash videos were, like, a human driver rear-ending the
Yeah,
Waymo that
yeah,
wasn't moving, basically. Like, they just couldn't find any evidence of them being ridiculous. And the other thing that people point out is, like, when you see the cars today and what they do, that's the worst they will ever be.
right.
Like, they only get better, and they're only learning. It's kind of incredible. I'll finish on this. Are we gonna, I ask a lot of people this. I'm surprised at the number of people who don't have a definitive answer. Are we gonna have to blow up the data centers?
I I think that, and it's a maybe, but it's, I feel like if AGI does develop, and given enough time, it likely will develop, but it will know that, it has an existential threat of the data centers being blown up, so it will not expose itself. And so the maybe is that we just won't know when it ever develops,
That's
because it's gonna hide itself.
uh, well, it turns out technology is still cool, 'cause it's a little bit frightening, but it's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool, and it makes our lives better every day.
All right. Well, this has been great. It's just cool to see you building a new thing. Like, I mean, it sounds like it's working. It's not like every other idea. I don't know. The future seems cool. It seems like you're really building something neat.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Absolutely, yeah.
All
Good to be
right.
building again.
All right. Well, thanks so much. This is the Something About Your podcast. My guest has been Sam Shank. Talk to you next time.